Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here again. Sogeti is one of my favorite companies. Our digital future. I'd like to share some ideas with you about why I think a new golden age of opportunity could be here. I know all the risks, we all know all the risks, but there are also amazing opportunities. And one of the things I'd like to do is to explain to you why I think there are such opportunities. But I don't have the controls, so I cannot continue. But I can, I can try. Thank you. So, we are at a crucial historical crossroads. We can build a digital and sustainable global golden age. Big thinking. Or, you see, this is a technological group, right? Just to remind us. Anyway, so the other option is to let the world risk a violent and divided future full of uncertainty for all. So you can say, why is this woman saying this? You know, why can I say this? Because I've learned a lot from the history of technological revolutions, from the way they're absorbed, from the possibilities they present, from the pattern they follow when they transform our societies. And it's because of that that I can say that we are at the precise moment when it's our choice in which direction these technologies are taken. So looking at technological revolutions, we can see that there have been 5 in the past 240 years. And we begin with the Industrial Revolution. Machines, the factories, the canals. The canals were the internet of the time. Then we go to 1830, and we have another revolution, the age of steam, coal, iron, and railways. Those two were basically in Britain, even though the US was already like a developing country rushing ahead and trying to catch up. And then we come to the third revolution, a very important one for us because that was the first globalization. It's the age of steel and heavy engineering, electrical, chemical, civil, naval. It was the time of the first globalization because we had, first of all, something absolutely amazing. Can you imagine that in 1899, actually 1902, there was a cable, there were lots of cables, going right around the globe. Now, just imagine a cable that goes from Australia to Vancouver, under the sea. Just imagine the ship that had to carry, because of course you have to have one cable, you can't have bits of cable when you're putting it under the sea. The ship that had to take that, it was as difficult as getting to the moon. Well, okay, that created the internet of the time, which was the telegraph, the world telegraph. And then we also had something wonderful, which was the steamship. The steamship reduced, compare sailing ships and steamships. We're talking about 4 or 5 times faster and 10, 40 times cheaper to move everything from south to north. So a global economy was created for the first time, and that was a completely different thing that had to be constructed. The golden age of the time, the Belle Epoque, was constructed with all those things, plus many other things, agricultural machinery, et cetera, So then we come to the next revolution, the one we know better, because we're still living with its consequences, the age of the automobile, oil, plastics, and mass production. That was the time, whereas in the third one, the US forged ahead and caught up with Britain, and so did Germany. Of course, after the war, the US had the upper hand. And then the US became the center of this new revolution of mass production and mass consumption. And then in the US also, we have the beginning of the age of information technology and telecommunications. The reason why that arrow is in two parts, it's a sort of half arrow, is because that is the point I'm going to make today. This revolution, compared to the others, if we look at the way the others happened, we can know that this revolution is only halfway along its path. And you know what happens when revolutions are right halfway along their path? That society decides in which direction to take them. Because every revolution provides a wide range of possibilities. And that wide range of possibilities gets chosen precisely at the halfway point, after there have been financial collapses, after people are angry, after there is unrest all over the place, after business is being questioned. Because, of course, there are all sorts of things that I will tell you about in a minute that happen when these revolutions begin in their early years, and therefore, in the second half is when society shapes them. And the reason why all that has to happen, too, is because each of these revolutions brings a techno-economic and socio-institutional shift. It is a major transformation. The world of the third surge, the Belle Epoque, is very different from the post-war golden age, and we are going to make sure that the golden age of this revolution is going to be very different from that one, in the sense that it'll be better, just like the golden age after the war was better than the Belle Epoque. What creates, what guides us in this transformation is that there is a new paradigm for information and profitability, and that paradigm can be moved in one direction or another. I'm going to show you also the historical record, so you can see the sequence I'm talking about of bubbles and golden ages. Technology. Okay, so we begin with each revolution, we have the fact that the previous is declining and that the new is rising. That's how it all begins. So for now, it would be like in the 70s that this process is happening, that mass production is declining, and therefore we have unemployment and inflation and government can't do anything. That's what happens at the end of one revolution. But at the same time, finance comes, gets really crazy looking around to see if it can find something to finance. And then, of course, in this case, it even had the state having funded internet and having funded computers and all the rest. So it was available. So it comes together. And then you have this huge surge of new technologies. You have a bubble prosperity. Then you have a collapse, because all bubbles must collapse. You have a turning point recession. Then you have a golden age prosperity. And you end up with the maturity of the one and gestation of the new. So if we begin with the first one, we had canal mania, canal panic, and after that, the Great British Leap. In the second one, we have railway mania. I'm sorry, it either doesn't work or works too fast. So we'll live with it, like we all live when things have bugs. So railway mania, railway panic, and after that, the Victorian boom. Multiple global booms, Gilded Age. The Gilded Age in the US, we had the crash of '93, and we had crashes in Argentina, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, in Egypt, all over the place, very often led by money from the City of London. Then we have all those crashes, and after that we have the Belle Epoque in Europe and the Progressive Era in the US. The next revolution brings us the Roaring Twenties that we know much better. The Roaring Twenties, radio, of course automobiles, aviation, all those things. Big electricity, stock market boom, stock market crash, and then we had the longest period of recession, the longest turning point from 29, including the war, which of course brought a lot of advance in industry because mass production was able to be used for the military purposes. And then after that, we have the welfare state and we have the post-war golden age. And that was shaped, and that it's very important for you to understand that business and government work together to shape the golden ages. In the 1930s, business wouldn't accept FDR's proposals for anything that had to do with welfare or work. No, get out of the way. Free markets, free markets, free markets. Well, they discovered during the war that it was fantastic to have government markets, procurement, you know, that you should need thousands of airplanes, tons of bullets, tons of uniforms, whatever, you know. And they discovered also that mass production, if you had mass demand, you could increase your productivity like mad. So when the war was over, oh, what are we going to do? Where's the demand? No longer. The welfare state, demand from people, consumer demand. And that's what brought the golden age. Business understood that for government to give people money or to create conditions so that people's salaries would be higher was very good for business. So that's how we get the post-war golden age. And then, of course, that's over. And. Is this the only one? This is getting pretty bad. Anyway, so we come to our current revolution. We have the dot-com boom, which collapsed in 2000. We had the global casino, which collapsed in 2008. And we now have another one. We're probably going to have another. Maybe we'll have a crash. Maybe it'll be soft, whatever. But why aren't we getting out of this? Because we are still in this sort of turning point moment, which can be followed by something that I think is precisely what we have ahead. And what this whole talk is about is that we could have a sustainable global ICT golden age. That's the possible future. And we are precisely there. We are at the point when it would be possible to have the golden age. And the adequate parallel then for today is, believe it or not, the 1930s. We are, even though we're not, you know, because the question of what a turning point is not just that you have unemployment in big, which we do. I mean, in Europe, you have countries that have 20, 30% unemployment, youth unemployment 40%, 30% in Italy, in Spain, in Greece. So we have that, and we have a lot of unemployment, which is not so clear from. But let's look at the turning point. What's the nature of the turning point? Well, as in the 1930s, and now what do we have? Structural unemployment. Structural means that the likelihood that this employment will be changed by, you know, in a stable way is difficult. So when you have de-skilling accompanied structural unemployment, then people will get, yeah, there are jobs. If you count jobs, it's okay. But if you have been a highly skilled assembly worker in making automobiles and you're now selling in a hamburger store, well, that's sort of, you know, that's pretty structural in terms of what was lost, in terms of de-skilling and so on. And obviously there is the big unemployment that's in Europe that doesn't, you know, that has lasted already many, many decades practically. We have hopelessness precisely because people don't see what their future could be, and we have inequality. It always happens. I mean, you all saw The Great Gatsby. There is this thing that happens in the Roaring 20s type period or in the Roaring 90s or now, that you get the rich getting very much richer and very often the poor getting poorer and a lot of loss. And it's different. In some cases, the ones that lose out is the middle income, like now, But in the Belle Epoque, before that, the ones that were risen from below were the middle-income ones. I mean, there was a creation of a middle. So history shows a lot of different patterns. But the fact is that there is some de-skilling, some rising of people, and some losses. So the other thing is that you get casino finance, because finance is afraid of risk, and therefore it doesn't invest long-term. It refuses to invest long-term, and not only that, it loves investing in just financial games. So it becomes a real casino. You just play with derivatives or whatever. You have giant monopolies every time. You have feeble growth. I mean, we can't really celebrate the amount of growth except in China, and that's even over. Talk of secular stagnation. The first time the term was ever used was precisely in the 1930s. Recessions, even depression. Xenophobia, because of course somebody must be guilty, so you blame the immigrants and the foreigners, whoever they are, it could be the whatever. Economic migrations, social unrest, political cleavages. Very typical that political parties get divided. It's very funny that in the 1890s, the Democratic Party was the one that didn't worry about the workers, and then it flipped, and then it became the one that did, and the Republicans were the ones that were worried. So somehow, the strange things that happen in political parties dividing up, new movements being born, that's very typical of these times. Whereas in golden ages, you have like a stability in the political picture. And then you get, of course, populist messianic leaders. So we had Stalin and Hitler both offering heaven for their nationals, and both very strong with great fanatical support behind them. And this happens each time. In each of the, we had William Jennings Bryan, big populist leader also in the 1890s, and so on. So, but all that, which is so worrisome, you know, that the world is in trouble, we feel the world is in trouble, it happens with a huge technological potential that lacks a clear, common, synergistic direction. Because in order to get a golden age, you need everybody to innovate in similar directions so that they can all help each other, so that there are suppliers that serve each other, so that consumers know what to expect, so that, you know, so there is like a dream, you know, like the American way of life, that made a lot of sense, and everybody sort of worked in that direction. The Cold War, that made a lot of sense. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the turning point is the historical moment for business and government to identify and act upon the most socially cohesive paths. Every paradigm shift leads to a realignment of the political spectrum. So what do we have? Normally we have society divided basically, you know, not very strongly, but so on, between people who have individual values and goals and think that everybody should go for himself, and winners and losers is the normal way the world should be, and the winners deserve to win. And then there are the collective values and goals people who think, well, we're all in this together and we've got to worry about everybody. So in order not to call them in any other way, those are more or less the two extremes that social movements always contain. And among them, in both cases, every time there is a paradigm shift, you have some people looking backward and some people looking forward. And the ones that look backward just want to solve the problems of today with the tools that they thought would be good for yesterday. And the ones that look forward are the ones that start thinking, how do we use these new things in order to solve our problems? And it doesn't matter. You can be individualistic or social. You can have, of course, you will have different approaches. You will come to different solutions, but they both must be using the new technologies. In fact, traditional parties divide. New movements emerge. I mean, we've seen now a lot of new movements emerging, the Greens, the Alternative for Germany, this and that and the other. There is a shift in culture, values, and aspirations. Success in business or in politics goes to those who best understand and shape the new potential. So the thing is, look at the potential gives, look at what the problems are, look at in which direction you want to take them, and then you can do it. You can't just think that past solutions are good. Past solutions are dead. So how was the mass production revolution politically shaped? Nazi fascism in one country, Sino-Soviet socialism in another, in a group, and the Keynesian democracies in the West. How was the age of steel and heavy engineering shaped? Well, the British free market empire, the protected American Gilded Age, 64% average tariffs on everything that America imported. And Germany was cartelized, unionized, very much also protected, and the government very active. So we have very different possibilities politically, and technology, because technology provides the options, but it's society that chooses the future. So what directions were given by the Keynesian democracies? Two main directions, suburbanization and the Cold War, with high taxes and the welfare state. So high taxes, you know what taxes were for the top layer of taxes in the US during Eisenhower's Republican government in the 1950s? 92%. Like in Sweden, believe it or not. And nobody was complaining. Of course, not many paid it, but it was there. Well, that's how it is, but all the others were high. I mean, that was the top one. And why weren't they complaining? Because it went out of their pocket into the government, from the government into the pockets of demand, either as procurement or as people or as employment, and that became demand, and therefore it was great for business. So taxes now in America, the problem is that the money is going to things that are being imported. So, you know, maybe the most important market for many is China rather than the US. That is complicated. It's complicated, and I can't get into that. So what innovation opportunities did suburbanization provide? Well, the house, minimum cost, best appearance, the family at home, comfort, disposability, plastics, get rid of everything, don't wash. Time saving in food and cleaning, entertainment center, good life for the children and for the pets, suburbia, the car, appearance, improvements, convenience, shop services, etc., etc. I mean, the whole world of services that you could have for that. And what did the Cold War mean in terms of innovation? Well, it meant the space race, frontier technology in materials, spaceships, communication and electronics, food and clothing to go on space, military, missiles, nuclear and conventional weapons, information and communication systems, which is where everything that we now have came from, because that was the origin of the whole thing. So once the directions are clear, supply and demand follow each other. We've got to understand that if we don't have a direction, then we don't work together and we don't have the demand that's necessary in order. If we don't follow what the demand is, we cannot get the supply, but we also have to shape the demand. It doesn't happen automatically. So social policy created a win-win game. Improving conditions for workers created peace and growing demand. Regulation protecting consumers made a safe and even playing field. High taxes provided solvent and reliable demand. And funding frontier innovation guaranteed the following revolution, which is very important that you don't get stuck with a revolution exhausted and the lack of the next one. All converging in synergistic directions favoring both business and society. Now, in which directions can the ICT revolution be shaped now? That's a big, important question. Smart green growth and full global development, with intelligent taxation and a redesigned welfare state. And when I mean intelligent taxation, I really mean intelligent. It's got to be the one that makes people do the right thing. For instance, right now, capital gains is 15%, and it doesn't matter what you get it in, and it doesn't matter when you get it. So you don't have long-term investment. So if you were to tax very high for short-term and practically really low if somebody invests for a long term, then innovation would be funded. It would be much more likely that it would be funded. If you have to pay 90% for anything that you earn within 24 hours playing around with high-frequency trading or something like that, then you might start thinking of longer term. And so on. You might tax, instead of taxing labor as we do now, we tax work and we tax profits with, well, in Europe with VAT. We should flip maybe and tax materials and energy and things like that so that people start, you just guide. That's what taxes are supposed to be. Besides gathering the money to do what you need to do, they're also in order to facilitate society going in similar directions. So, and we, of course, need a redesigned welfare state. Our current welfare state is completely obsolete. Maybe we need basic income. Maybe we need various things that are more adequate for the way work is now. People are self-employed. We need to even out their income. We have many complicated things to face. And we're not thinking, we think that it's okay to keep these old ways of doing bureaucratic. We have computers. Why don't we do it in a more modern way? I mean, not just that you do the same old thing in the computer. That's not, and you all know that you have to leap into a new way of thinking about what you do with computing and with digital things and with artificial intelligence, which is so powerful. So why is a global sustainable golden age possible with the IT revolution? Why can we talk about the environment and the IT revolution in one breath? It's very simple. It's because both dematerialization, which is one of the important things to do for the environment, and globalization are in the nature of the IT paradigm. So the two things, smart green growth and full global development, are very much natural to IT, but not through technological determinism, because technological revolutions always offer many possible directions. Smart green sharing lifestyles can unleash a full employment golden age. An aspirational good life with less energy and materials, more ICT and more jobs. We have a whole world of human-centered services possible. Health and care, personalized services, leisure and sports, entertainment, mobility and distribution, diversified electricity, education, industry, logistics, sharing and barter and rental. We need to go from possession to rental, information and networking, the arts to practice and enjoy, conservation and maintenance. Maintenance could employ hundreds of thousands of people if we could change from this wasteful society where a refrigerator is not supposed to last 5 years and you're paying for it, you're actually renting it when you pay for it on credit. Social media, communications and creating, resource recovery, recycling and reuse, pollution reduction, and so on and so forth. And then the other side, modernization of production, the circular economy, truly durable products, 3D printing, rental model, nanotechnology, renewable energy, batteries and carbon capture, and so on, bioplastics, custom materials, artificial intelligence and robotics, complex systems engineering, hydroponics and urban agriculture. I mean, wow, we have tons of things if we would all go in similar directions. That means massive innovation and massive employment in sustainable activities with IT, while also using robotics and artificial intelligence to maximize wealth creation with very high productivity. Because actually what happens with every technological revolution is that you get a very high productivity sector on one end, and then the rest of the economy is actually low productivity, but this is not technology, this is old age. Okay, no good. Thank you.
Human service.
Very good. We also have to have some human services next to the artificial intelligence ones. So, thank you. So for a digital, democratic world, businesses and institutions must be redesigned for quality of life services. Healthcare, personal and personalized, in community, plus online and remote. Nutrition, have healthier and sustainable sources, less meat, sugar, or processing. Education, flexible, multi-directional, self-managed, lifelong. Transport, energy-saving, new vehicles, cycling, dirigibles maybe. Housing, sharing, new rental models, sustainability, optimal cell design for cities, for all those young people who move around. They should be able to have some cell design type of living. Creativity, generalized, enabling spaces and conditions, new forms of funding. Leisure, experiences, participation, digital, active communities. All that together, what does it really mean? Sustainable production, working and living must be transformed, made more accessible, more purposeful, and more desirable, while also being more profitable, obviously. Otherwise, it's not a win-win game. But if you don't make it desirable, accessible, and profitable, desirable, accessible, and purposeful, you're not very likely to be profitable in this new world. So what did we get with the mass production golden age? We got employment, education, health, and security. That's a lot based on home ownership and mass consumption. But we destroyed the environment and excluded the developing world. So what could we get with the digital golden age? We could get all of that, plus all of that, but smart and green, plus meaning, creativity, social networks, lifelong learning, based on collaboration, access, rental, maintenance, recycling, and reuse. So it's great. It's also a lovely life. We're not talking, some people talk about degrowth and all these sacrifices we have to make because we're guilty, because we use so much of the planet, and now. No, we can love this new life. It can be aspirational. We've got to get a model of the good life, which is not the super consumerist, wasteful, old style. That's old. That's the one, and the young don't want it. They're going around in their bicycles with their mobiles, and they want experience, and they want other things. They want meaning. They don't want this possession stuff. They actually find it unpleasant. With an improving global society flourishing on a healthy planet. In capitalism, society shapes and is shaped by technology, and understanding and using the potential of IT for shaping a meaningful, sustainable future is the challenge of this generation. Let's make sure we meet it properly. Thank you.